I have always thought of the concept of inflation as being a big bank and a big government issue. Never had I ever thought of it actually being a small business consideration. Well, if you've been operating under a similar premise, I'm here to tell you that nope, inflation isn't something us small business leaders can afford to ignore. In this video, first I will be explaining what inflation is, then how it affects SMEs, and finally what you can do to prepare your business for inflation. Hopefully by the end of it, you'll be making some healthy strategic moves to build a healthier inflation-proof business. Defined simply, inflation means an overall rise in the price of products and services in an economy. Basically, the value of what a dollar can buy you reduces. In 1980, for instance, you could buy a white loaf of bread for 51 cents. Today, that same loaf of bread would cost you $1.55. Save for a few ingredients here and there and changes in the way the bread is made, the biggest difference is the value of the dollar. Holding all else constant, this corresponds with a loss of purchasing power for a currency utilized within an economy. You see, as a result of inflation, it takes more currency units to buy the same amount of goods and services than it did in the past. In other words, your money buys you less stuff, be it bread, toothpaste, rent, or medical services. There are essentially 4 ways in which inflation directly affects the health of a small business. The first impact is the erosion of purchasing power. Inflation decreases money's buying power since it requires more money to be spent to purchase the same products. If your customer's income has not risen at the same rate as inflation, then they will naturally be inclined to buy less, whether it's from you or other businesses. The second impact is that inflation raises the cost of borrowing. We all understand the point that a dollar buys less in an inflationary environment than it used to. Now, assume you borrow money at a 9% annual interest rate with a 10% annual inflation rate. This indicates that the bank's true rate of return is negative. They lose 1% on every dollar they lend. As a result, instead of generating a profit on their loans, they're losing money. What will banks do in this scenario? They'll increase lending rates, which means business owners will have to pay more for loans. The third impact is shortages of finished products in the market. Supply chain disruptions have followed the unexpected increase in consumer product demand recently through the pandemic. Many suppliers were caught off guard by the jump in goods demand, which is actually unusual during a crisis, and found themselves scrambling to keep up. As a result of the rush, crucial supply chains became overloaded, slowing the manufacture of consumer goods ranging from vehicles to computers. As ports getting blocked and shipping becoming an expensive problem, stores are dealing with shortages of products. Further, large and small businesses are experiencing labor shortages, which have resulted in orders being delayed or cancelled. As a result, prices for the things that are available have risen, and with rising commodity prices, inflation has become hotter and more persistent than many had anticipated. The fourth impact is lower investment and disruption to business plans. This is definitely a problem that is felt at the management level of a business. Imagine as a business leader, you choose to invest $100,000 in your company. If there has been an inflation rate of 10% since you made the original decision, that $100,000 will only have the buying power worth $90,000. Suddenly, the investment level into the business has been lowered. Naturally, it then means that there is a disruption to your business plans and you will need to reconsider your strategy. Well, now that we are sufficiently depressed, do we just sit here with the fear of the inflation boogeyman hunting us down forevermore? I don't know about you, but that really doesn't work for me. So I did a little research, and here is what I found that we can do to minimize the negative effects of inflation on our business when it does come. I have found there to be essentially 5 moves you can make, but before I go into them, I do strongly believe that these steps hold the most power when they're actioned before your business is under any acute stress due to inflation-fueled market pressure. Saying that, if you have found this video at a later stage, I would still action as much as you can, but maybe don't expect a full 180 of your circumstances. As with most things like this, the more time you invest, the greater your returns. Okay, so let's get to the list. First things first, know your figures. For you to know where your business has pockets of maneuverability when there are any market pressures, it's absolutely imperative that you understand 2 things in your business finance. 1, your profit margins, and 2, your cash flow forecast. Let's look at profit margins first. To calculate your profit margin, you're going to need to know the monthly or annual totals for your total sales income, your direct cost of sales. This is the total of your expenses that arise directly from making your product or service that you sell, such as raw materials, transportation maybe, or contracted staff. And finally, your operating expenses. This is a total of all your costs to run your business as a whole, such as rent or wages for your permanent staff. Now, we need to do some maths. How about I use some dummy figures so you can see how it's all worked out? Here we go. Next, we need to calculate the profit margins for the business. Start by subtracting your direct costs from your sales income. This gives you your gross profit. Then, to calculate your gross profit margin, you divide your gross profit by your sales income and multiply it by 100. Now, let's calculate the net profit. For this, subtract your operating expenses from your gross profit to work out the net profit. Then to calculate your net profit margin, add the direct cost of sales and operating expenses, then divide the answer by your sales income and multiply by 100. By tracking your profit margins and your expenses, you will be able to understand the impact of inflation on your margin and profitability. As they say, knowledge is power. If, for instance, your net profit margin has reduced down to 25% from the original 50% in our example, you'll be able to flag up that something has to change quick time to prevent your business from becoming loss-making. It is then that you make your move to either increase your income or reduce your direct cost of sales or reduce your operating expenses. The second set of figures you're going to want to track and keep updated are your cash flow forecasts. Where tracking profit margins are giving you a current state of play, your cash flow forecasts are looking into the future and getting you to think about whether you need extra funds 3 months or 6 months or a year from now. I will shortly be releasing a video explaining how to do a cash flow forecast, but the main thing that you will want to understand right now is that cash flow is tracking when money comes in and out of your business, not when the transactions occur. So if your customers receive a product from you this month but doesn't need to pay until 60 days later, this impacts your company's cash flow. Similarly, imagine you've already paid your supplier for that product last month. You now have a 3 to 4 month gap of money coming back into your business for that one product. Imagine that multiplied for every product. If your cash flow forecast shows you are on the wire with money flowing within your company, a well-managed forecast can trigger you to make some moves, such as maybe agreeing a 30-day delayed payment to your supplier and reducing your credit agreement with your customer from 60 days to 30 days, for instance. When it comes to factoring in inflation into your forecast, it is essential you bake in the assumption of higher costs to ensure you don't come up short. I hope you understand the power of tracking financials in your business in this way. It will help you become more cognizant of the slow creep of inflation and the direct and indirect impact it's having on your bottom line and cash flow. Of all the other measures you can take to mitigate the effects of inflation, I believe this one, to record and know your business figures, is the most fundamental, because this is the only one that is giving you a constant health check for your business and will tell you if everything else you are doing next is working or not. The second thing to action is to build a culture of expense control. When we get financially strained, what's the first thing we do? We cut our costs. We've all been there. We download an Excel sheet with a list of all our expenses and we go at it with a red pen, slashing as much as we can. For a moment, we feel that we're in control and we look left and right for someone to come out and give us an award for how good we are. The longer we're in business, the more fat we build up around the edges with direct debits we've forgotten to cancel, subscriptions we just don't need anymore, and costs for things that we won't miss if we let go. Hell, you may even find you have less need for so much space for your workplace, or that there's an extra team member or two who are bloating your operating expenses. The problem with the whole red pen technique is that, let's be honest, it's pretty demoralizing for not just the team, but also you. The antidote: make expense control a part of your company culture, even when the going's good, so it doesn't feel like an austerity measure triggering panic or a feeling of instability? Start celebrating expense control. Make cost monitoring easy for you and any other team members sharing management responsibilities with you. Don't just track income with the team, track costs and margins too. I will give a little disclaimer here though. Don't let extreme cost control halt innovation in your business and the development of more efficient work systems in it. I know I have been in this situation a few times when a team member will think a manual system is fine to run in order to save money, but I sometimes need to veto this to show them that the cost of a piece of software is a better expense to bear, considering the time saving and better use of that team member's time now that they're free to do a more demanding task. The third measure to action in order to inflation-proof your business is to get comfortable with selling value rather than just products or services. When the crunch hits with inflation and your customer is faced with the need to buy a product like the one your business is selling, you can bet your bottom dollar that they will be dancing between you and your competitor based on price. Unless, and it's a very big unless, you manage to differentiate yourself from your competitor by selling a value-driven proposition rather than a price-driven one. Essentially, this is all about offering something with perceived added value, making it worth it in the customer's mind to pay more. An example of this experience recently was when I ordered an online delivery of my supermarket shop from Waitrose. Typically, their stores add value and justify their higher prices by offering free coffees for members, wider aisles, happy and helpful staff, as well as superior quality produce. I was curious to see how they would manage this for a home delivery. Well, it was an awesome experience. The driver, dressed in the store apron uniform, comes into the kitchen and unpacks all the food for you onto the counters, leaving you to just put the items away in the fridge and the pantry. No heavy carrying, no mispacked bags, just plain convenience. All of this was done happily with an engaging chat. Now, my husband is pretty easygoing about most things, but when you have him coming to you and saying, "That was bloody brilliant, order from them again," it's plain to see that value has been added and they will not be entering into any price wars with cheaper competitors easily. If you want to learn more about differentiating your business, I invite you to watch my video about Porter's generic forces, where I discuss this in far more detail. I'll add the link. There's a further benefit to differentiating yourself. That is, if inflation is pushing you to pass on your increased costs to your customer, it will be easier to do so since customers can't easily do a price comparison of your product and service since it's treated as different from anything else your competitors may be offering. Further, an existing customer base that have bought from you based on value is much more likely to repeat buy from you. So I would definitely take extra care to nurture those relationships too. The fourth action I would take is to stabilize your supply chain. As much as your business health is at risk with the pressures of inflation, so are the businesses charged with the responsibility of supplying you. I would make it standard practice to seek out multiple suppliers for your business and test them long before there is an emergency. Having backup suppliers whom you have tested will stabilize your supply chain and reduce the chances that your business will be adversely affected by things that are outside of your remit of control. For one of my business projects, we actually have a list of internally graded suppliers that the team can turn to at any time there is a setback with our standard supply chain. Finally, I would recommend you to invest in your business expertise. As much as inflation creates an environment of pressure, it undoubtedly spurs change and innovation. Warren Buffett describes inflation to be a challenge to business owners that sometimes feels like running up a downward escalator. In the face of this inevitability, he suggests that you invest in yourself and be the best of what you do. I have to say, I wholeheartedly agree. Studying technology and understanding how you can develop business practices is an investment that is bound to pay dividends when markets and circumstances change. I would begin this learning by working through any of the portals mentioned in my business resources video, which I'll link in the description. I would even encourage further learning for at least my most influential members of the team, who I would expect to turn to when times are going to get tough. If they have been working on their business skills and skill sets, they are far more likely to be able to innovate with me rather than leaving me to do all the heavy lifting during those tough times. As small business leaders, it's important we understand that what we do is not unaffected by the forces of inflation in the wider national and global economy. Saying that, we do not have to be held hostage by the thought of it either. No matter your industry, have a solid financial and operational business strategy that tracks and triggers mitigating actions which minimize the overall impact of a changing marketplace. I would even go as far as to say that having something such as inflation is a healthy friction point that stops us from resting on our laurels and has us tracking our financials, becoming cognizant of our spending, thinking about how we can add value for our customers, stabilizing our supply chains, all whilst investing in our business expertise. Not bad in the scheme of things. Until the next one, you've got this. Hi, my name is Priyanka. It would mean the world if you take a second and subscribe to this channel.